Over the last 16 years of helping people achieve financial freedom, I've seen firsthand that there's two completely different games that successful people have mastered. The big mistake happens when they never switch or they play the first too long. And we need to know both of these if we want to have financial freedom that lasts. It's really the how to get rich game versus the how to stay rich game. And you and I have heard all the stories of Mike Tyson. He's made $400 million and then he went broke. Or Allen Iverson or Nicolas Cage or 70% of the lottery winners who win the lottery, they go broke. But we don't need to be an athlete, a celebrity, or a lottery winner to make the same mistakes that they did. I've seen seemingly average people do this over and over again. So today I'm going to show you why the skills that make you rich can be the exact things that actually make you poor. And more importantly, I'll show you how to switch games and really when to switch games so it's not too late. And if I haven't met you yet, I'm Dave Zoller and I've got an investment firm and a tax planning firm. And I've actually got another YouTube channel that has over 160,000 subscribers. But all those videos are for retirees, people in their 60s. And it's mostly related to retirement strategies. So I created this new channel for people who are under 55 so that I can share the wisdom from those who are older than us so that hopefully we can improve our own financial lives right now. Now, back in high school, I was a valet at a high-end country club outside Chicago. And over 3 years, I got to know some of the members pretty well. And as you'd expect, I got to park some pretty cool cars, Porsche, Mercedes, even the occasional Rolls Royce. And here's what surprised me. Some of the wealthiest members, the ones who had massive businesses and they had real influence, they showed up in cars that you wouldn't expect. And it aligns perfectly with this meme. They would show up in Lexuses, Acuras, Toyota Land Cruisers, really nothing flashy. And these members, they weren't trying to really impress anybody. They didn't have ego, they didn't have show. And that really stuck with me. Those were the guys that I felt like I wanted to talk to the most. They were the ones who I wanted to emulate the most too. And I'd love to know if you ever saw this in your life, if there's any examples of this. If this has happened to you or if you noticed this, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But what's interesting is as I got into the wealth management industry 16 years ago, I started to see this more and more. And I learned that the wealthier people, the wealthier they got, they realized that the big house, the fancy car, and the watches, they don't give you what they thought or what you thought they would. At first, it's a reward. It feels like a reward, and it signals that you made it. And there's some status mentally that happens when you can purchase those things. And yes, they do have some of these things, but eventually they see that that doesn't really create real freedom, and the focus shifts from chasing status to really choosing utility. That's why I think they drove some of the regular everyday cars, the long-lasting cars versus the Porsche or whatever. And it really, they went from look what I have to what actually matters. And they stopped looking for admiration in things, and instead they found it in who they are, the businesses they built, the value that they bring, and then the relationships and family and the network that they have. Not shouting, check out my new car. But now let's get into the two games. This is the get rich game versus the stay rich game. And a lot of people, they never learn that there's two games and they use the get rich strategies their entire life. And that's exactly why some of them end up struggling or some of them end up losing it all. So here's the difference. Getting rich is offense. Staying rich is defense. Getting rich requires concentration, and then staying rich requires diversification. Getting rich means taking some big risks, and then staying rich means avoiding unnecessary risks. Getting rich is really related to income, and then staying rich is related to assets. There's a well-known proverb that says, precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it. This means that wise people, they're prudent with their resources and they save them for the future, while fools squander their possessions on immediate gratification. Now, when you think of a wise investor, who's the first person that pops in your mind? For me, it's Warren Buffett. If you thought of someone different, let me know in the comments who you thought of. I'd love to know. Now, you might be thinking that Buffett's a conservative investor now because Berkshire Hathaway, they've got over 300 billion in cash, over 30% of their portfolio, last I checked. But earlier on, Buffett made bold, concentrated bets. Like he put a third of the portfolio into American Express during a crisis in the 60s or into Geico in the 1970s. And he used insurance float as leverage in many years ago. He'd buy entire companies and he took big swings. But here's the key. He only made a big bet when he had an edge. He had high upside, low downside, intelligent risk, and never being reckless. As for current Buffett, though, when you look at him now and think about him now, it seems like he's more focused on survival because they hold that huge amount of cash, not for returns, but for resilience. And one of the most famous quotes that he said in really the second half of his career was rule number one in investing is never lose money. Rule number two, never forget rule number one. The getting rich game is about maximizing return, and the staying rich game is about minimizing risk of ruin. So Buffett played both, but never at the same time. That's the real playbook. Bold where you have an edge, and then boring when it matters most. Now, I'll share a practical framework of when you know it's time to switch from the game of getting rich to the game of staying rich, and then also some investments to think about in each category. But first, I'd love to know if you're liking this video so far. The best way that I could find out is if you hit the like button if you are liking it, and that will also help spread this video to other people. And thanks in advance if you do that. Now let's hit the psychological shift, the practical framework, and then the investments to use in each game. So first, psychological, and that is in the getting rich game, you think more about how can I make more? What opportunity am I missing? Or how do I accelerate this? And then in the staying rich game, it's more thinking about what could wipe me out? Or how do I protect this? Or what would I regret losing? There's a point where the stakes change, but most people, they never change their strategy. So now here's the practical. When do we actually switch games? Here's a framework. So calculate your freedom number. This is the amount of money that you need to have invested to cover your expenses, your normal expenses every year, and just cover them from your investments and your savings. So while you're building towards that number, you're playing offense and you're taking calculated risks and you're building the investment or your business or investing aggressively in your career and your portfolio. But then as you get closer, you start protecting what you've built a little bit. Kind of think about it like this. Set aside the money that you promise yourself you won't lose. Money that's going to be there even if the riskier bets don't work out. Some call it the sleep well at night fund. I think of it as your freedom fund. So the specific numbers matter less than the principle. And it's just the principle is the closer you get to having enough, the more you should protect it. So maybe when you're halfway, that's when you're starting to put 20% into somewhere safe. And as you get closer, maybe that number 3 to 5 years out, you gradually shift more and more towards conservative. You don't have to get ultra conservative, but you do need to be able to just survive the market punches or the big risks or events that happen to you so that you can reach that goal eventually. Because here's the truth. You can get rich once, but you can go broke 100 different ways. Now, when it comes to investments, here's what happens. The more financially wise you become, the more boring the money strategy actually starts to get. Here's the paradox. Both beginners and billionaires often invest the same way. Index funds, S&P 500, long-term thinking. And it's the people in the middle, the ones who have just enough knowledge to be dangerous, or maybe who hit it big in some investment one time, and they're chasing hot trends, or they're trying to time the market, or they're trying to outsmart the market. But real wealth, it usually is built by mastering the boring money game. But there is a cost to doing this. And I really just mentioned it. It's boring. No one brags about their index funds at dinner parties, and no one posts about their emergency fund on Instagram, maybe Dave Ramsey or something, but no one gets admired for driving a 5-year-old car. And as Morgan Housel said, wealth is what you don't see. The car that you didn't buy, the house that you didn't upgrade, the risk that you didn't take. Many of my wealthiest clients, you'd never know it because they look middle class. It's like, what is that book? The Millionaire Next Door. They're playing a different game than everybody else. In Ecclesiastes, it says that there is a time for everything, a time to plant and a time to harvest. And your financial life, that has seasons too. The getting rich season is about multiplication, and then the staying rich season is about stewardship. Both are important. And then the wisdom is knowing what season you're in. Please let me know if this was helpful by clicking the like button or leaving a comment. And then check out this video on the 12 most important uncommon money lessons I learned over the last 16 years of helping people achieve financial freedom. I'll see you there.